Okay, welcome to today's edition of English Literature. Welcome. Today we're going to be putting to use all of those literary terms that we had and reading a poem, and we will be notating down as we identify. So I know this assignment is very basic, just to get to know the language and the words and recognize them, and then we will move to different stuff that relates later in this week. The devices that we're going to look at. So we're going to simply identify devices. The devices that we're going to look at include alliteration, which is that sound device, caesura, which is that new term of taking a pause. I threw kenning down here a little bit because it's a little bit difficult in this assignment, although it will get easier. This one is kind of tricky. And then we will talk about imagery. Now, there is literal imagery, like literal description of something that truly is happening. And then we also have figurative imagery that plays a role as well. So like something that is not real or like metaphorically speaking. Then I threw conflict in because these Anglo-Saxon poetries are in the form of a narrative. So they tend to have a conflict that builds as a way to help us understand the mood, the feeling, and the theme. So this is step one is just identifying these as we read. We will also put mood as a short exercise of what that language does to the audience. And then later in the week, we will connect some themes. So this is a uploaded PDF, and I have my textbook here, so you can flip to the PDF or pause the video to read it along. I'm going to do the first 20 lines or so with you and then let you practice on your own. So for this, you will need paper and pencil. So if you have a notebook for this class, that would be beneficial, so you can keep kind of everything in it as we go. Or if you have a piece of paper that you plan on having a folder with or something, so you might want to pause the video here and get yourself set with a piece of paper, a full sheet of paper in whatever method at home that you have, okay? All right, I didn't go anywhere, but maybe you're back. So here we go. If you want to label it the Seafarer, that is the title. And then if you want to make a simple T-chart with device, which are these things right here, we have literary narrative device, and then we have language device as well. And then just write the word example or feeling. I'm going to make this pretty basic for this time through. As you're getting your notebook set to look just like this, please know that the Anglo-Saxons had a lot of movement. They had a lot of conquering. They had a lot of assimilation of people moving to different areas. The Anglo-Saxon people were loyal to a king or a lord, not necessarily a nation, which kind of makes the feel different. The mead hall, that's what it's called, the mead hall, during that time was used as a form of gathering for a lord or a knight, or a lord or a king, and those people that were loyal to them. They ate, they had fun, they entertained. It was kind of their gathering place. So one of these poems may have been recited there as a form of entertainment that does reflect the things that they were going through during that time period as well. You will get to know the writer or the poet through identifying these and what mood they create. So it's very basic today. I'm going to do the first part for you. Please, what I write up here, you also write in your notebook, and you will finish the assignment on your own and have to provide it to me through Flipgrid. So here we go. I'm going to do some of it for you. I'm going to read and I'm going to write, and then I will let you practice on your own. It starts out, this tale is true and mine. It tells how the sea took me and swept me back and forth in sorrow and in pain. I immediately stopped there because I noticed that there was a clear conflict, or at least the beginning of a conflict that I saw. So you literally just need to write conflict in your notebook. We're just going to do the bare basics as we outline this beginning. The conflict seemed to be with the person and that the sea took him. I use that word because then that conflict is surrounded by the author saying it was fearful and sorrowful. No, I literally felt like this sea was a very powerful force somewhere. This is kind of the mini versions of those inferences or interpretations in your note taking that you did on the medieval time period. So it's nothing grand, like length significance. It's just the thought that I had when I read those words. Goes on to say, in a thousand ports and in me, it tells of smashing surf when I sweated in the cold of an anxious watch perched in my bow as it dashed under cliffs. My feet were cast in icy bonds, bound with frost. Okay. So I take here, and the first thing that I noticed is the device that is a sound device with language, which is alliteration. I took alliteration in the words that it said smashing, surf, and then in the same lines, it said sweated. This literally kind of felt like that wave like because he chose to alliterate with the S sounds. So I literally, you could put that it kind of sounds like waves. Although the word smashing could put you in a mood or allow you to feel a certain way. What I did here is a shajora. You don't remember what that word means. It's simply a pause, a comma, or a breath. So the words that they use a shajora between are interesting. The words that they use are where it says watched and perched. To not say like I watched and I perched, like all in one sentence, to force you to stop makes it seem like there is some sort of strategy or some sort of plan or some sort of alertness between I watched, I perched, I was here. Okay. So it makes me feel like there is some sort of sense of being alert to what is going on, and it actually feels like there's some tension as well. So we'll move on. We just have a couple more to do. With frozen chains and hardship groaned around my heart, hunger tore at my sea-wearing soul. Hunger, no man shuddered on the quiet fairness of earth can feel how wretched I was, drifting through winter on an ice-cold sea, whirled in sorrow, alone in a world blown clear of love. Now, that's a pretty powerful phrase. The world blown clear of love, as all that literal imagery adds to it in the previous lines. Hung with icicles, the hailstorms flew. The sound was the roaring sea, freezing waves, the song of a swan. Might serve for pleasure, the cry of the seafowl, the death noise of birds instead of laughter. Now, I decided to do the figure. Let's see. No, I'm going to do figurative language, not literal, but figurative language. And it talked about the world blown clear of love. Literally, this made me feel alone and somewhat desperate, and that the outlook on the things going on is this empty feel. Now, there's tons and tons of other imagery right behind it, so your charts that you do on your own are not going to be the same because that just happens to be the one that I picked. But we also ran across alliteration in Song of the Swan, which I would believe that the author alliterating with S may be a choice, a conscious decision. Notice it says that there is a cry of the seafowl, the death noise of birds instead of laughter, the mewing of gulls instead of mead. Storms beat on the rocky cliffs and were echoed by the ice feathery turns, and the eagle screams. No kinsman could find comfort there to a soul left drowning in desolation. Already, we've only identified 4 of these, and already we have a pretty good mood. Now we're going to have to read further to figure out what's important to this poet to help develop a theme, but already we start kind of seeing where this is going. Last but not least, I guess I will use like imagery or literal language because it struck me the death cry of birds. That literally, that image struck me. I felt like he wanted me to hear this long, drawn out cry for help, almost. Cry for help, or it seemed like things were ending, or there was this desperate attempt to get something that was not working. So I have 5. There are many, many more that you could identify, but I at least wanted to show you kind of one of each. I did not find a kenning in here, so if you do, congratulations. But they're a little bit tougher in this than the stuff we read next time. So with that said, you are going to continue right on this sheet. So I would like you to keep the 5 that I gave and continue by just doing this. On the PDF or on the document, every time there is an indent in that section, I want you to have 2, identify 2 with the example and potentially the feeling or the mood per section. So your answers won't be the same because maybe you decided to use a caesura here instead of imagery. My suggestion is that you really try to vary the elements that you find, because it's good to know that they are a continuous thing, that author doesn't just do alliteration and get the job done. It's a combination of all of these things. You will continue right here. Continue all the way down. I think that number ends you just about 15 if you do 2 per every section. Please try to figure out what is important to this writer or this poet. We know how he feels. We know kind of the struggle that he has, or at least the beginning struggle that he has, but we need to see what he values in life and what he thinks is important, because that will develop a theme and potentially how he copes with life around him. Okay, enjoy and follow the rest of the assignment. I will be on the Google Classroom if you need me or you are struggling to find certain items to identify. Enjoy.